Hello and welcome to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. And this episode almost feels obligatory, Aaron. We're talking about 1998's Godzilla. I feel like everyone knew that this had to eventually happen, right? I mean, this is a pretty famous film for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about it because I was just like, what are you talking about? That is a good movie. And like a lot of people recommended it and it was on our list and but watching it, I understand now.
Yeah, there's a rich history behind this film, and the more I researched, the more I was just dumbfounded. I was just totally confused. So this sits on Rotten Tomatoes at a 16% critical rating. Audience rating is 28%. I had a budget of about $130 million at the end of the day, 35 somewhere in there. And the global box office take was only $379 million. Somewhere in there. And as a result, the planned trilogy never happened. So this is, of course, from director Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin. This is our second Roland Emmerich film, Aaron.
Yes, it's the first time we've had a repeat director.
Yeah, but this is a very, very different animal than 10,000 BC. Aaron, what are your first memories of Godzilla, of this movie in particular?
Oh, I like 1998. I had to be 9 years old when this movie came out. So it's just, me as a kid, just loving watching a monster movie. And then on top of that, I think because the trilogy got canceled, they made a cartoon about the show. Yeah. And so I remember watching that like every Saturday morning, waking up and watching the Godzilla cartoon. I couldn't tell you what it's about right now, but I remember watching it.
Yeah, the cartoon I think was superior. And I think the cartoon was a response to what little fan base there was. Man, there's so much to talk about. I ended up with like 4 pages of notes here, so I'm going to try to do this in like a some sort of chronological order. I remember this came out just a couple years after Jurassic Park: The Lost World. I think I was 12 years old, and obviously just eating up anything dinosaurs. I'll never forget sitting in theaters watching that first trailer where Godzilla's foot smashes through that museum and like crushes that T-Rex skeleton. Did you remember seeing that trailer?
Yeah, I did.
Averaging 19 feet in height. This creature was believed to be one of the largest predators who ever lived on our planet.
That trailer dropped like a year before the film came out. And I remember, because we lived out in like rural BC, so I remember on like terrible internet buffering that trailer over and over again as a kid, and just you would literally press play and then pause it and like go make some cereal and come back and watch. My anticipation for this movie was through the roof. Because they were, in the marketing campaign, they were so careful as to not show what Godzilla was going to look like. And, I mean, there weren't even test screenings for this movie, so quite literally nobody really knew, except for those involved in filmmaking. How would you describe your, fandom level towards Godzilla, generally speaking?
Oh, I would say that I'm up there as a monster movie fan. I like like I always say, chaos and destruction and all that stuff going on. Like that this movie checks all those boxes. And so I'm always a fan. Like I'm a fan of the King Kong movies. All the Rampage movie, just any monster movie with them destroying things. But also, there is a lot of like history and lore that goes along with Godzilla, and I would say I don't know much of that. So I don't know. I'm as big of a fan as you can be without like the extended knowledge.
Yeah, I get you for sure. Yeah, My parents were big into monster movies, and Godzilla was right up there. So I grew up watching like Godzilla versus Mothra and Rodan and all that kind of stuff. Never really dabbled with like the Son of Godzilla, whatever that stuff was, but I grew up with a fair bit of knowledge with it. Like,
so you watched you watched like the Japanese ones that were subbed or were they dubbed?
Yeah, okay. and I think in total I've watched about probably half a dozen Godzilla movies.
Wow, that's impressive.
Over time, of course, but yeah, I remember my parents they talked about the first Godzilla film like it was a straight up horror film, Aaron.
Oh, really?
It's interesting because like the first Godzilla was very much a Japanese experience. You know, it was very culturally relevant to what they had gone through. Godzilla as a monster was symbolic of the horrors of nuclear war. This like unstoppable, according to the first film, this is not a creature you're supposed to like. So you have that backstory of like this being like a horrific thing. Then you fast forward to 1998. Now at this point in time, there have been 23 Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
Like, there's been every permutation of Godzilla you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it was funny, Aaron, because the more I researched about Godzilla, it seemed to me that the ownership behind Godzilla was in a constant state of trying to figure out how to kill him off because the stories were getting so zany.
Yeah.
That, like, for 20 years, they were, like, trying to figure out how they were finally just going to, like, end the franchise, but there kept being renewed fan base and renewed, call to keep going with it.
Yeah.
So, as we're gonna get into it, people hated this rendition of Godzilla, the design, the characterization that we talk about, Yeah. But like the foundation before this movie came out was basically, okay, we finally killed Godzilla after all this goofy stuff. It's gotten totally out of control. It's completely lost touch with its roots. There's 22 or 23 movies out already. And so along comes Roland Emmerich, fresh off of Stargate and Independence Day. He's handed the keys to Godzilla by Sony.
Yeah.
He decides that he isn't going to make just some dumb guy in a suit punch another guy in a suit movie. He is going to try to do something different.
Yes. And
people hated him for it. So 22 movies wasn't enough. Punching every different kind of mecha, this, Godzilla, that, flying this, flying that. It wasn't enough. People still wanted a Puritan approach.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you feel about that?
I'm, you know what, watching this movie again, because I haven't seen this movie in years. I would probably say like at least 8 or 9 years is the last time I watched this movie. And so watching through it, I kept getting so many feelings of nostalgia just from being a kid and watching it and loving the cartoon and everything. Yeah. And I realized, though, that there was like a lot of marketing things that went along with this movie, which was just like insane. And I think that this movie did a lot of things for like the first time. Things that I like remember only that went along like with this specific movie, like the Godzilla movie. And so I kind of feel like even though it has a lot of like kind of zany things and a lot of things that don't make sense and a lot of rain. And,
lots of rain.
Yeah, but it still did a lot of things that helped progress like the movie industry.
What are some things that kind of jumped out to you in that regard? Well,
I was just like so the marketing campaign, even though like a lot of people don't like ads to be like thrown in their face and whatnot. Just the whole like Kodak camera commercial where the guy like the cameraman, it's like a lookalike of the camera guy who's in the movie. And anyways, he smashes his camera and then he has to go to like a disposable camera vending machine and like hit it and get another one and like take a picture.
For all those times you wished you had a camera, get the only one-time use camera loaded with Kodak Max film. Hold it, Because no matter how difficult your subject is, gotcha. You blinked. You'll get better pictures more often.
One more. Smile. Never mind. I think I got it.
Max one-time use cameras from Kodak.
I don't know. I don't like that kind of product placement. Doesn't bother me. I think it's fun. I think it's they're not trying to be subtle and brainwash you into anything. Like, they just full on made a commercial with the movie. And also, you don't like, I feel like movies have gotten away from that too, where they don't do these like insane zany like marketing ploys. And so it was just kind of fun to like remember that stuff.
Do you remember the bus billboard things that said like his foot is the size of this bus, and it was on the side of buses, and it just had like the Godzilla logo, and that was it?
Yeah, no, I don't.
And then there was
I don't remember that, but that's awesome.
There was like the Taco Bell dog, where the Taco Bell dog like looks up at Godzilla or something.
Oh yeah.
I think I need a bigger box.
I can't exactly remember what he says, like a bigger box or something, but like,
oh, I love the commercials for Godzilla.
Yeah, there was some serious marketing for this film, for sure. I found out that basically since like 1990, this film was in gestation. They were trying to figure out how they were going to bring Godzilla to North America. And they worked really closely with Toho, the company behind Godzilla.
Yeah.
They had like an entire, like, I can't remember, like a 90-page or something like that document that detailed all the things that Godzilla could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
One of the things that really jumped out at me, which I found very surprising, is that a lot of people criticize the creature design of Godzilla. Yeah. It's basically an iguana with like Shere Khan the tiger's chin. But like, here's the thing: is the company that owned Godzilla, Toho, they signed off on that creature design, even though it broke virtually every rule that they set out for the creature design. They ultimately saw the sketches and said, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do that." There is a hypocritical nature to this film, because once it came out, they threw Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin under the bus for the reception of it. Like, because back in like, so many different directors were attached to this film, including James Cameron, Tim Burton, Joe Johnston, even Paul Verhoeven, which that would have been quite a trip if he'd have done it. But they finally convinced Roland Emmerich to do it, and barely gave him any time to really get it done, because they wanted this out for Memorial Day weekend. Yeah. But Aaron, I was reading that there was a pre-written script, which was a totally different film, where Godzilla was going to fight a monster called the Griffin, and Stan Winston, the legendary Stan Winston, did the creature design for both Godzilla and this Griffin character. And Godzilla looked exactly like Godzilla, just like a little bit more detailed and updated. But when Roland Emmerich first signed on, like, everything was pretty much set to go. But he allegedly is not a Godzilla fan. Yeah. Basically just doesn't care about it at all. So when he came on, he thought it was stupid. He didn't want to do in a movie where it was just monsters knocking heads together. He basically did a page 1 rewrite of the film.
Because in the original ones, too, I was reading this, and that Godzilla is like an ancient creature, right? A creature that exists and kind of exists in the depths of the earth. And then in this movie, it's like an iguana that gets exposed to like toxic waste or whatever, or from like a nuclear bomb, and gets mutated.
Yeah, in French Polynesia.
Yeah.
And they were so desperate to have this movie set in New York that they'd rather have Godzilla cross the Panama Canal and than go to like anywhere on the West Coast. I was like, hey, he could have came to Vancouver or LA and like saved himself a lot of time. But no, he had to go all the way around to New York.
And I guess we should probably jump into the plot of the movie here, hey?
Yeah, before we go any further, and tell me, unpack the plot. Let's have a look here.
So, like I said, this Godzilla is created from nuclear explosions and whatever. This iguana, I guess, is exposed to it and gets mutated, and it turns into Godzilla. And which is kind of like, oh, like, okay, sure, I guess that's kind of like believable given the time and when it came out, right? Mm-hmm. But basically, Matthew Broderick, who is Dr. Nico, I can never say, Topolopoulos. Topolopoulos.
It's Totopoulos. Whatever.
Totopoulos. Okay, anyways. Jean Reno as Felipe Rocher. Maria Patillo as Audrey Timmons, who is like the love interest of Dr. Nico Topolopoulos.
In her one and only Hollywood film.
Yeah. Did you think her acting was bad? I couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah. Well,
okay, so...
I'd never realized just how bad it was until I rewatched this just the other day, and I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, I like, see, that's I don't know what has happened to me, but like, I just can't tell anymore. I'm like, I think this is bad acting, but I'm not sure.
We've watched too many bad movies and we're losing perspective.
I'm like, this isn't the worst I've seen, but it's like, I think it's bad. Then we have Hank, what is that? Azaria as Victor Animal Pilati. Interesting about him. He's the voice of Moe, isn't he, from The Simpsons?
Yes, there is approximately, I think, 3 or 4 different Simpsons voice actors in this film.
Oh, I didn't know that. Do you know who the other ones are?
Yeah, so there's Harry Shearer is in it, and he does the voice of Kent Brockman and all those other characters.
Oh, okay.
Nancy Cartwright is in this movie for like a second as Godzilla's walking past the window.
Sir, I think your story just walked by the window.
What?
Okay, yeah.
That's the voice actress for Bart Simpson.
Holy smokes, there must have been like, you must have just been friends, or I wonder what the story is there. Okay, so Matthew Broderick is like a biologist of worms or whatever. Then he gets recruited by the military to come investigate Godzilla because they find the tracks, and he's obviously swam to New York City, and but for some reason they need like a biologist of worms, and even though that these aren't worms, he somehow like is just able to predict every move of Godzilla, because I assume he's a genius.
Well, he's like a biologist, but he seems to be like, the way they set up his character, he's basically like the only name in the game, and like research on like nuclear radiation on animals or something. Yeah. It's really vague in a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah, and he loves worms. Like, they make that very evident that he is very passionate about his work with worms.
When he's like singing and being all la-di-da while driving through Chernobyl, which is like this horrific tragedy. You're like, huh, okay, this is our main character.
And then he's like, they're 17% bigger. And you're like, yeah, like, okay. And the guy's like, whatever. And he's like, they're 17% bigger. He's just in love with worms.
He's got like pictures of his ex-girlfriend from 8 years ago in his like lunch kit.
Yeah. He has like, you know what I will say about Matthew Broderick is like, he's got like a Matthew McConaughey voice where it's just something about it just kind of is calming, the way he talks.
Yeah, it's kind of soothing in a weird way. It's very nostalgic for me, for sure. Growing up with like Ferris Bueller and like Lady Hawk and films like that, it just really brings me back to a place and time.
It always reminds me of Lion King as well.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, so he is the biologist. He gets called in, and he's kind of takes the reins on predicting the movements of Godzilla. They eventually follow it to New York, where I guess it's swam because it's the perfect island to lay eggs on, because it's completely surrounded, right?
Wait, I don't get it. If he's the first of his kind,
And how can he be pregnant? I mean, doesn't he need a mate?
Not if he reproduces asexually.
Where's the fun in that?
I kept thinking, why would he travel so far? But it makes perfect sense. Lots of animals travel great distances for reproduction. That's what he's doing in New York. He's nesting.
Nesting?
Yes.
Which brings me, Aaron, to my first alternate title for this film.
Okay.
Nesting in New York.
Okay. That's like explain a movie plot like badly.
Yeah, because a lot of people were saying online when I was researching, they said, you know what, if you just don't call it Godzilla, it's actually a good film. It's a good monster film. So I was like, what would be some good titles for this film? So that's my first one, Nesting in New York.
Iguana in New York, or like I don't know.
New York.
Iguana in New York looking for a home. I don't know.
You know what? Okay, when I was watching this, I was wondering at first if it was a veiled metaphor for immigration. And I was like,
I wonder.
I was like, I don't know. Maybe that's probably giving it way too much credit.
Yeah. I think they literally wanted to have a monster just wreck things in New York.
Yeah, and they did whatever they could to make it happen.
Yeah, there was a lot of things being wrecked.
Yeah. So
let me ask you this about the mayor in the movie, who is...
Oh my gosh. This is so weird.
Michael Lerner. The mayor Ebert, who is played by Michael Lerner. Which also, a quick thing, Mayor Ebert and his what are they called?
Film critic Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah. It's a play on them, and his assistant is also supposed to be the second guy. Just a little interesting fact there. But sorry, Michael Lerner. I feel like in the 90s he played that exact character in like every one of his movies.
So true.
Right?
Yeah, and I felt the same way about the what was the sergeant guy? Kevin Dunn, who plays Colonel Hicks. That guy is like the same character in every single movie.
Yeah. Do you think Colonel Hicks is a throw to Alien?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. I have a theory about this film that we'll get to based on all this wacky stuff. But it's okay. So Godzilla arrives in New York, Aaron.
Yes, and
Nick the worm guy Totopoulos is hot on his heels.
Yeah, and so he quickly realizes that Godzilla is nesting, and that
it just sounds funny.
Yeah,
it just sounds funny. I don't.
That's what he was doing, or he or she was doing. I'm not sure which one to go with, because in the movie they say that I guess Godzilla is asexual. So asexual means you can reproduce by itself. Like obviously you're familiar with it if you've seen like the Jurassic Park movies and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what didn't make sense to me is like they just kept calling it a he after.
Yeah.
And so I was like, shouldn't they be saying she now? But maybe I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting.
If we only had a worm guy to tell us.
Pick a lane.
But yeah, anyway, so Godzilla is nesting. Nick discovers that Godzilla actually isn't against humanity and doesn't want to destroy it, and is actually more of a neutral character. Or like a neutral animal kind of thing, and just wants to make a nest, lay her eggs, and then have food waiting for her babies. And so they like bait it out with fish, they chase it, and then they realize it's like tunneled into New York and made Madison Square Garden its nest.
Yeah. Which brings me to one of my questions, Aaron.
Okay.
It's just a logistical plot question, but it jumped out at me. They lure Godzilla out with a big pile of fish twice in this film.
Yeah.
And then when they go into Madison Square Garden, the fish is everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So like Godzilla scooped up the fish and then probably like regurgitated it out. But like, did Godzilla have a plan A for like feeding its young? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did it not do any of the food collecting work on its own? Because it was kind of weird, like that first fish pile scene, it scoops a bunch of it up and it's like, okay, now it has food for its young. But like, what would it have done otherwise?
It probably just would have let them feast on humans.
Oh, that would have been like a totally different film.
That's what I'm assuming.
Just have these humans cocooned up like in Aliens, ready for the Godzillas to eat them.
Maybe that was part of the reason of why Godzilla chose New York, a heavily populated city. It can hide behind buildings. It can nest in the ground, and like an abundance of food source because of the millions of people that live there.
That's very interesting.
So they lure it out. They realize it's like trying to have babies. His love interest, what's her name? Audrey. She is like a wannabe reporter, basically. And she kind of uses her like past romance with him to slip her way in and get like the scoop on what's going on with Godzilla. And obviously, like, you put two on top of two and they become lovers again and they work out whatever issues that they did have before. And she helps them. She helps them, I guess, like, defeat Godzilla. And so where the movie kind of ends is, the French guys. We got to introduce the French guys. So I'm a little bit confused about them, and maybe you can explain this to me.
I don't think I can.
Okay, because so Matthew Broderick, he kind of gets like kicked out of the military because he's for safe, or no, because his love interest, Audrey, she like stole information and obviously leaked it to the media, and they were like, oh, well, you did this, and they kicked him out of the military or wherever he was like helping, right? And then he gets recruited by these French guys, who is Jean Reno.
Jean Reno.
Yeah, okay. I just totally butchered that.
Jean Reno.
Yeah, Jean Reno. Oh, I feel so like
no, don't.
Uncultured.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, Aaron, come on. Look at the movie you're talking about. This is This is how uncultured this movie is. Here's the names of his cronies in the movie: Jean-Luc, Jean-Claude, Jean-Pierre, and Jean-Philippe. Those are the names of his cronies. Like. What the heck, man?
And like later when they die, he doesn't even shed a tear. He's just like, oh.
Yeah. Is that not racist? I'm sorry. I don't mean like, but come on, man. That's so bad.
It is. So these guys recruit him and they're like, we're the only ones that want to save the Godzilla.
Yeah, apparently.
And we're like, oh, okay. Like, okay, so these are like environmentalists or whatever. And they're with the French, like, Secret Service. And then they go into the Madison Square Garden and they plant bombs all over babies, right?
Yeah. Like directly on the eggs.
Yeah, and so I'm like, so you want to save Godzilla, but you want to kill her babies. And I was a little bit confused there because it just seemed to contradict itself.
Well, at first I thought they were just doing sequel bait. So basically they were going to imply that Jean Reno had snuck off with one of the Godzilla eggs or something. But then at the end of the movie, like, spoiler alert, one of them is still remaining and it cracks open anyway. So you're like, well, what was the point of him sneaking off then? If he didn't have some agenda to fulfill or something. Yeah,
they're like, I don't know what they were in this show.
Yeah, I feel like there was like part 2 of this trilogy would have dove more into him. I bet he probably knew that there were more kaijus on the way or something, you know, and they're probably laying the groundwork in that sense.
Yeah, and so he recruits Matthew Broderick. They obviously work together to plant bombs on all the eggs. Yeah. And then eventually they get out, but as they are like leaving Madison Square Garden, I guess they get chased by Godzilla. And so they're like just driving around in a taxi, which, by the way, whatever taxi, that car is like well made. It was like in the mouth of Godzilla. It got trampled on. It like drove over uneven terrain and like, it was just kept going.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. This is the real hero of this movie.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So the movie just kind of wraps up where they, I guess, call in fighter jets. The fighter jets blow up Madison Square Garden, and then they blow up Godzilla, and then it's kind of like everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and then we get that like little tidbit at the end where one egg survived.
One egg survived. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which brings me to my next alternate title for this film. Concerned Lizard Mom.
Concerned Lizard Mom. That's a good one.
It's really a different take on the character. It really, really is. And I think that's one of there's a lot of stuff I do want to defend about this film. The more I thought about it, the more I researched it. I want to defend the fresh take because regardless of whether it worked. Aaron, the entire time I was watching this, I kept asking myself, what would I have done?
I told them that like I would like kind of approach it the way that I would sit down in a room with Dean and say, what is Godzilla? And if we would have this idea right now, how would we tell it? And I kind of told him also that like this is a 50s movie, and then like for example, if you would have done War of the Worlds, you know, like done like in the 50s, it would not work today.
Like, okay, this character's been around for decades, and it's got like 20 movies, and Sony says, hey, here's the budget. We have a pre-made script, but I don't know. We really want you to direct it because you kicked ass at Independence Day. You have 16 months to make this work or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Like, what would you do? Do you think you would reimagine it and try to find a new spin? Or would you just like rest on the laurels and have a couple monsters punching each other for, 2 hours?
Oh, okay. If you want an Aaron's version of Godzilla,
desperately,
it would be. I would stick with the fact that Godzilla is just like a freak of nature and a creature that just exists, but like in the depths of the earth. I would keep that.
Yeah, you wouldn't mess with the origin.
No, and secondly, I like the fact that Godzilla is impartial, so like doesn't care for the humans, but also doesn't care for the humans. So it's just like if they get destroyed, whatever. But is also not like really going out of his way to destroy it. But so like the newest Godzilla movie that came out, like I absolutely love that one because they just kept introducing monsters. And he would just fight them. And then eventually he had like a team up with Mothra and they would fight like a monster together. And that's exactly where I would go. I would just have monster after monster, like less humans in it and probably just more chaos and like monsters doing just insane things and blowing stuff up and making a mess of everything.
Yeah. The thing is though, like as soon as you remove like the allegorical nature of Godzilla, it's really not that interesting. It's really just a big giant lizard. Yeah. Or dragon or whatever you want to call him, or kaiju. Like it's really just a big monster. So like when you're taking the Japanese experience out of it and saying, okay, we're going to Americanize this big monster and have him smash up New York. If you're going to do that, then you have to put some focus on some human characters that are actually going to bring some heart and soul and energy to the movie, which is what I think the most recent couple kind of did. They focused more on the characters. Like in the first one with Bryan Cranston, that was much more, there's barely any Godzilla in it. So they went the entire different direction. So, man, I gotta defend Roland Emmerich for trying to do something different with the character, for trying to make it interesting. Yeah. I don't think it worked in terms of what people wanted from Godzilla. Like, he made Godzilla more of, like, an animal than some legendary monster.
Yeah, he did.
I feel like Godzilla should be a force to be reckoned with, like, just terrifying. Yeah. And I think those newest couple movies kind of did that. Same with the Netflix cartoon anime. I don't know if it's an anime. Forgive me if it's actually.
I believe it is an anime.
So I watched the first one.
Yeah.
And in that one, Godzilla is unstoppable force of nature. Just this massive, terrifying, like otherworldly thing, you know? that has taken over planet Earth in that movie. So I feel like Roland Emmerich, he almost had the concept there, but I think because of like studio pressures and not having enough time to make this movie because it was really rushed. I feel like he tried to do something different, but ran out of time, so just started using all the tropes and all of the rip-off stuff from like his previous films and Jurassic Park and like whatever was on his mind at the time just to get this stinking film out the door.
I would agree with that. I like for this movie, I think the thing that drove me insane the most was the size of Godzilla and how it would constantly change to like suit whatever shot they were filming at the time.
Right.
Like you see Godzilla wandering around, and there was a friend and I were watching the movie together, and he was like pointing out how there's the one scene where it was like the tunnel, and the eye is there. Like he opens its eye, and it's like massive, and it's the size of like a subway tunnel in New York or whatever kind of tunnel that was, right?
Yeah.
But like to have an eye that big would like it would be a massive monster. But then like when it's like roaming around New York, its eyes don't look that big, and so it kind of like as a tradesman, it just drove me insane when things are scaled bigger and then smaller and then bigger, and they like don't make sense. That is one of those like flow things that drive me insane. But with that being said, what I really liked was it made Godzilla for me a bit more relatable because it gave it kind of like a logical point of view where it was like, oh, this is how it was created, rather than us just believing that it came out of like the depths of the earth and it's a prehistoric creature.
Yeah, there's like a specific origin to him in this one.
Yeah, and so I agree with you. He tried something different, but it's exactly what you said with this movie, because it has already such a deep and rich like lore and fan base behind it, that no matter what he does, unless he stayed true to like the Godzilla lore, people were going to hate it, right? And so he did try to do something different. And there's not much he could do to make it better story-wise. Like I think that if he would have like tightened up a few things during the movie, like maybe less rain, better actors, and like proper scaling of Godzilla, like those three things would have probably increased this movie drastically.
Yeah, because Roland Emmerich, he's a pretty from what I understand, he seems like a pretty control freak director, where he's usually the writer, he usually produces, like he's very much like these films are his babies.
Yeah, and
up until this point, most of his films are like his own original ideas or his own personal curiosities, like we covered in 10,000 BC. I think this film has a neat place in Hollywood history because it's kind of a cautionary tale as to like what kind of director you choose, because this movie needed a yes man director for sure. The script was there, you had the creature designs, everything was locked and loaded. And the only reason they really wanted Roland Emmerich is, one, because so many other big Hollywood directors turned it down because they were like, no, it's just dudes in this, it's just like monsters punching each other.
Yeah.
But Roland Emmerich, he was hot off Independence Day, which obviously did very well for him. But Roland Emmerich, he's not the yes man guy. Like, this is the same guy who made 10,000 BC. Like, this is the same guy who's blown up the White House and done all this weird stuff and is into fringy topics. And you needed a director who would come in and follow the rules and just shoot the script, collect his paycheck, and walk away. And that's not, from my understanding of him anyway, that's not who Roland Emmerich is.
Yeah.
So they went page one, start from scratch, even the creature design, threw it all out the window and said, let's make something different. And you know what? This movie is full of logistical errors. It's full of janky special effects. It's full of some pretty bad acting performances. It's got borderline racist cliches. It's got all sorts of dumb stuff. But it's really fascinating.
the special effects for this movie. Now, I can't remember around this time, and you might know better than me. Were the special effects specifically in Godzilla like were they cutting edge at that time, or was this movie like really poor special effects for that time?
Okay, there's an interesting thing that happened where there was something wrong with the I remember there was something wrong with either the transfer or the print to film.
A film I made once called Godzilla was designed to be printed on the old-fashioned 3-stripe system of Technicolor. And everything we did in post-production was designed for that result. And literally just before the film came out, we were unable to make those prints. There was a technical glitch, and we couldn't make those prints. So we had to move to a different format. Well, that different format truly hurt the digital effects. They went from being, I think, literally the best digital effects up to that point in our history to looking somewhat shabby. All the blacks got muddy. I lost all the detail within special effects shots. Feet didn't look like they hit the ground, and suddenly the effects went from being spectacular to being a C+.
Right.
Now, with the new Blu-ray coming out, it's literally the first time that audiences are going to see the movie the way it was intended to look.
So the theatrical version actually looks worse than like the Blu-ray release.
Oh, okay.
So I think by the time it hit theaters, it looked like all the creature effects looked pretty terrible. But then once it got its Blu-ray transfer, it actually ended up looking a little slicker. But
I see.
But this leads to like another thing I want to defend, though, is that like this movie fuses together like miniatures and CGI. Like Aaron, enough paint went into this movie to like paint Golden Gate Bridge. There was enough lumber used in this movie to build something like 50 or 80 houses.
Holy smokes.
The amount of craftsmanship behind this movie is outrageous.
The Beast is actually a submerged scale model that rips apart a miniature version of the pier. The scene is then played back in slow motion, and a computer combines an actor with the original shot. The monster's often the work of computer animators, but for this thrilling sequence, the special effects team designed an animatronic model with facial and body movements powered by remote control. Action!
See, you thought it was all done by computers, but it's not, and that's what makes it so good.
And contrary to popular belief, there actually are a couple shots where it is a guy in a Godzilla suit.
Oh, really?
Anytime Godzilla was like coming up through the street, or like any of the close-up like head smash kind of work, was actually a guy in a Godzilla suit. So there is practical stuff. It's really a fusion of like a bunch of tradesmen and craftspeople who built this stuff, painted these amazing sets, like recreated vast chunks of New York City.
Yeah.
And then had some CGI monster, tramp through it, it's really cool. Like one thing, like people take this kind of stuff for granted, but I mean, I can't even tell you how many people how much like man hours it would have taken to like build all of that.
Yeah.
But that's like the craftsmanship was stunning. Like I bet you can't watch this movie and tell me what's miniature and what's not.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool fusion of effects. But yeah, the digital monster stuff, man, I don't know. It doesn't.
I feel, and this is kind of where I go back to. I feel like this movie was kind of ahead of its time, I guess, in doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
In trying all these like different techniques to incorporate into its movie, and so like I remember P. Diddy or Puff Daddy at the time. He did a theme song for this movie. There's so much stuff that this like people took from this movie and incorporated it into like so many things. I'm pretty sure I don't know, I think it's the MTV Music Awards or whatever, whenever they would do those fun like opening scenes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there is a Godzilla like opening scene where they like reference the movie somehow.
You know what they say about big lizards? What? What? What do they say about big lizards? How would I know? You just said to me, you know what they say about big lizards. Well, do you? I'm asking you. Asking me what? About the lizards. Oh, stop that. Especially this.
Dude, did you ever hear that Green Day Brain Stew Godzilla mashup?
No, I haven't. and that's what I mean is like it's just insane to me that this movie flopped so hard and is so bad as it is, but so many people attached their names to it in some way or another.
Yeah, I miss when movies did this. This movie reminded me so much of the same kind of vibe as like Batman Forever, where there was like this big soundtrack event and everyone rushed out and bought the CD before the movie had even come out. And, you know, all the music videos on MTV, they were like kind of quasi in the same universe as the film. So you'd have the artist playing in the streets where like Godzilla was, you know, smashing around. Like it was really cool. That I miss that kind of stuff. That it was like movies back then. I feel like they had this event quality to them where you went in feeling so climatized to the universe that they were building already that by the time you put your butt in the seat, the anticipation was just, you know, you were like at peak ready to see whatever the film was.
And that's the biggest thing I want to defend about this movie, which is really weird because I feel like it's not even actually the movie, but more of like the marketing of it. But it made me feel so nostalgic, I wish you would get that these days with like movies that are coming out like currently.
Totally. Like full disclosure, I loved this film when it came out. I really did. I really enjoyed it. And you know what? Like over the years as a teenager, like my family, we popped it in the DVD player like a bunch of times. Like I will say this is the first time I've watched this film with any sort of critical regard, you know? I've never watched this movie looking for any sort of answers about anything. So it was pretty interesting to watch it as an adult and find these things and pick up on these character things and, you know, just like her Audrey's sleazy boss and, you know, and how gross that was. And like all these weird little things that just jumped out at me all over the place that I never noticed as like a 12-year-old, you know, teenager or whatever. But yeah, there's something about this movie. It's like a warm 90s hug, you know? It's
That's exactly it.
You could watch it with kids. It's kind of got this like family vibe to it. It's not particularly scary or gross or mean-spirited or anything. It's really just like a weird kind of popcorn movie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It is a really fascinating piece of Hollywood history.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the sound design in this movie is so wacky. It's so over the top. I watched the second half of this film with headphones in, like on my phone. And dude, I gotta tell you, there's some weird sound design in this movie. There's
there's
so many like African mammals in this movie. Like there's elephant noises and there's this weird explosion sound they use like half a dozen times. That sounds like it sounds like a panther roaring or like a leopard.
This movie is like an enigma.
Yeah, I feel like this movie had like 16 Foley artists just like standing in a gymnasium throwing like pumpkins and melons at each other. Like it's so nuts. The sound design.
It almost seems as if it's one of those movies where they just kind of threw things and we're trying to see what would stick.
Yeah, there's so many weird things. Like Audrey seems like a genuinely terrible person.
Yes, she does.
She not? Like, as Nick, Matthew Broderick's character says, they were like college sweethearts. She left him without a phone call or anything. And so he spent most of his like young adult life thinking that he did something wrong, but it, you know, didn't know per se, right? So he's like obsessed with her still and has all these pictures. And Audrey, she sees that. And so after like 8 years of like not even talking to him, she uses his affection for her to steal this tape and further her career. Yeah. But the weird thing is that the movie doesn't play it out in that way. Like because of Nick's reactions to it, we're not given the chance to react the way like a normal person would in that situation.
He's just so nice.
Yeah, which brings me to my WTF moment of this film, Aaron. And this like as an adult watching this scene, it just blew my mind. So, okay, they're in Madison Square Garden, right? And they find out that there's like, what were there, like 200 eggs or something insane like that?
Mm-hmm.
So this this situation has the potential to like destroy the world. Now they realize they gotta get a hold of the military and get them to like blow up Madison Square Garden. So they do that by using the broadcast room that broadcasts the Ranger games, they call it. Not the Rangers, but the Ranger games, because you gotta, avoid the licensing thing. So they get that one guy's help. I can't remember his name, but they get that guy's help to broadcast a signal out onto the TV so that the military would pick it up, right? But rather than just like get on the camera and be like, O'Neill, you guys gotta blow this place up right now. Look at all the eggs. Look at the eggs. You guys gotta come do this. Like, rather than do that, Audrey like ties her hair back and pretends to be like, she plays reporter and like fires it up and she's like, coming to you live from Madison Square Garden. And I was like, what are you doing? This is literally the end of the world and you're trying to launch a career. I was like, this is the weirdest thing.
No way. That was her big break, Dad.
She like cared more about herself than she did about like the future of the world. And she's,
hey, you got to take advantage if you're going to get ahead in life.
And then they play the little cute music and Nick's like, wow, you're really good kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, this is like, you should have been screaming at the camera being like, you guys got to blow this place up right now. Oh my gosh, Aaron. That scene never jumped out at me before.
I didn't even realize it like that. I was just like, oh yeah, good idea.
No, but it was a good idea, but it was so cutesy and like, I'm a reporter now. And I was like, Audrey, this is not the time. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. You should rewatch that scene in that context. It is so crazy.
Okay, I will.
Do you have a WTF moment for this film?
No, I don't have one specifically. Well, actually, I do have one. It's kind of stupid, though. And it's in the beginning of the movie when Godzilla, I think, is swimming in the ocean or whatever and comes across... Or no, it's with the fishing boat, and I guess it, like, bites the net, whatever, and it's, like, pulling the fishing ship down. And they're all yelling, like... cut the lines and stuff. Yeah. And then there's just like this 1 second clip of a dude in like waders and like shirtless just working on the boat there. I was like, I don't think you would be shirtless in waders, like just working on a fishing boat in the middle of the ocean.
In like a dark
it would be
storm.
so like there's a storm, you're like fishing. Yeah. There's Godzilla chasing your boat, and and the ocean is like not a warm place.
No, it's
like
not.
It's not a place where you're in like waders and shirtless and like in the waders there.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so. I was just like, I had so many questions. Like, who told this guy to take his shirt off and be like in the film? Yeah. What was going on there? And he was probably like, and like the guy is pretty fit too. So I feel like he's like, I'm gonna show my muscles off, and no one was like, we'll cut that out. And it just made it.
Oh man, you know what? I think you just answered my fish question, because maybe Godzilla like scooped up all their fish to feed its babies and like it regurgitated them.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Then maybe he just like they lured out Godzilla with fish because it was like, oh, maybe I'll just get some more fish, maybe just a little more fish. Oh man, I think you just answered my biggest question about this film with the shirtless guy. And do they survive? It seems like maybe that boat might have took a few of them out.
No. So I think that the Asian guy that was on there is the one who survives, is the only survivor. And he's the one that's in the film with the lighter and he's like, Gojira.
Oh, yeah.
Gojira. And so, yeah.
That makes sense.
I was wondering why the flame like triggered this old guy.
Oh yeah, I wonder. Like, what was he gonna do? Was he gonna light him on fire? Was that his threat?
I don't know. He was just like laying there, and then he like lights the lighter, and he's like, Gojira.
You know,
you're like, oh,
maybe there's some reference to an older film we don't know about there or something.
Yeah, that could be.
I totally remembered it in my notes here. I have another WTF moment. This one's really funny, but well, it's okay. So, when they have the big fish pile, right, and Godzilla's making his way down the road to the fish pile, they do a cutaway to like the radar screen. And on the radar screen is a big old...
I know exactly what
There's a fish. There's a fish graphic on their screen.
Yeah.
Some soldier had to whip that up, you know? It couldn't just be like an X or something. Like, is the audience? Do they think the audience is that dumb? So, like, I imagine some like Hicks or whatever, you're like bursting into some office and being like, Kowalski, I need a fish graphic for the radar in 5 minutes. He's like, oh yes, sir. He's like programming a fish. It's like, I don't understand. Like, why couldn't it have just been like a big X or something?
The other that makes me think of my other for this movie. I was like, they're trying to kill Godzilla.
Yeah,
they're feeding it or like giving it food. Why don't they poison the fish?
Oh my goodness, Aaron. Oh no, you just broke this movie. I never even thought about that. That would have been roll credits right there.
Like you poison the fish, the babies eat the fish, they die from eating the poisoned fish. Maybe Godzilla will maybe it won't because technically it's mutated from like nuclear waste or whatever.
Yeah.
Or radiation, so maybe poison has no effect, but they didn't explore that.
Its physiology is intact enough for Matthew Broderick to determine that it's pregnant. So you'd figure that like, you know, they could at least take a crack at some poisoning kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, can you tell in a pregnancy test by dropping blood on it if you're pregnant? Because that's what he does in the movie.
I think so, because that's kind of like, because the hormones he's looking for would show up there. I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
I had no idea if that was like scientific or not, or they're just like, we need to figure out how it's pregnant.
I could be wrong, but I'm going to say I think that could work.
Yeah. Do you remember that scene when he's in the store buying the pregnancy tests and what's her name? Audrey walks in. She's like, "Wow, you must have quite the harem."
Yeah. What a weird line. As if like
so weird.
As if like in the middle of a monster raiding Manhattan, his biggest concern is my girlfriend pregnant? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, his like 60 girlfriends.
Well, yeah, like
pregnant?
That's how Audrey impersonates. And this is like the first time she's talked to him in how long, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, nice pregnancy test. You know what I mean? It's like, what?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, lady? Why are you so weird?
She like, I mean, I guess towards the end of the movie, she kind of redeems herself, but she is kind of a trash human being.
She definitely, I don't think they worked out in the long run. I really don't think that Nick and Audrey like grew up and grew old together and had kids.
I don't know. He's like holding on to pictures of her 8 years later.
Yeah, but he also seems like, it's weird because when we meet him, he doesn't, like, he seems very much happy and married to his work, you know? And he has the ability to just pick up and go wherever the military tells him. So I don't imagine that he's like gotten a lot of ties to any particular place. So it's weird because his character doesn't seem to necessitate like a romantic relationship to begin with. So it's weird that he would actually end up with one, or that the writing would say, "Oh, hey, let's make this romance happen in this film." It just didn't need to be there.
Who was the other scientist that was like on the Team Godzilla? The lady with the red hair.
Elsie Chapman.
Her assistant, like whoever that guy was, looked like a poor man's Danny McBride.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah,
I was like, that's what I thought. That for some reason I was like, I want a remake with Danny McBride playing that character.
Yeah, totally. Also, something that always jumps out at me in this film is just how quickly and how easily they seem to evacuate Manhattan. I don't think you could ever evacuate Manhattan for any reason. I really don't. But by the time Godzilla starts doing his thing, it's basically a bunch of empty buildings. And every time I see this movie, that's the most jarring thing for me, is trying to wrap my head around the fact that they just decided to like evacuate Manhattan.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Okay, Aaron, this brings me to my other alternate movie title.
Okay.
Iguana Coming to America. Because
I like it.
Again, I feel like Roland Emmerich flirted with the idea of making this an allegory about immigration, but just pumped the brakes and didn't quite dig in. Because there's even a part in the movie where they refer to all the people that left Manhattan as immigrants. Did you catch that? When they were like, we have all these immigrants that need to get back into Manhattan because like they migrated out of Manhattan.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, is this movie trying to talk about like the fear of immigration in New York?
I wonder.
I know, but it was like diet symbolism. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't quite doing it. It wasn't quite digging in, but I don't know. So this brings me to my theory about this film.
Yeah.
In all the research I did, looking at the way Roland Emmerich approached it, the total like Americanization and some would say like bastardization of this character. Toho ended up calling this character Zilla because they didn't think that it deserved the moniker of Godzilla.
I like that.
And they ended up killing it in 2004 in another Godzilla movie. They actually have Godzilla kill this Zilla with like nuclear breath or something. It's pretty funny. It's very, very self-aware.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when I look at this, how Roland Emmerich reluctantly agreed to do this film in the time that he did, on the budget that he did, when I look at the way he handled the script and threw out the existing script, when I look at like the casting and even just the characters' names, for goodness sake, Aaron, I have a suspicion that Roland Emmerich did this film as pure parody. When I look at this film, there's like this weird underlining, like cynical nature to everything that happens. I feel like Roland Emmerich, man, is like flipping the middle finger to Hollywood execs in this whole movie. Like this whole thing just feels like a parody of a Godzilla movie to me. Because he full on said that he thought the whole thing was dumb and that he didn't like Godzilla and that and the fact that he just like got kind of like thrown into this and he reluctantly decided to do it. I have a suspicion. I have a conspiracy theory that Roland Emmerich purposefully threw this movie. And the whole thing is really just indicative of his views of like North American filmmaking.
That would honestly make more sense than him just butchering a Godzilla movie.
I think so. Like all the Simpsons characters showing up, all the French guys named Jean something, you know, the pedestrian use of New York City, like the throwaway cliches and like the thinly veiled allegories, because he himself, he's not American, right? This movie feels like it was made by someone that spent like a long weekend in New York. And they just did a bunch of sightseeing and were like, okay, I think I got New York figured out. Let's do this. I don't know, Aaron. I feel like this whole thing is one big joke. What do you think?
I would agree with that. Like I said, it makes sense because, you know, for me, this doesn't fit a Roland Emmerich movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The way that he creates movies, how he, you know, now that we've like watched a couple and reviewed and looked in depth to a few of them, watching this one, it doesn't seem like a Roland Emmerich movie.
No.
And so I would agree exactly with what you just said.
I would love to like sit down with Roland Emmerich and just like off the record,
pick his brain,
and just ask him like, look, is this a big like FU to American cinema? Like, are you actually like, this wasn't serious, was it? Like, you were actually saying, yeah, this is all one big Sony joke.
Maybe he tried to get payback for the Japanese by creating this like crazy slap in the face against Americans movie.
Well, when you go so far as to parody the very critics who lambasted your last film and you like put them in your next film.
Yeah.
Like, what is that but not a big FU? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, when you cast half of the Simpsons characters as, like, extras in your New York City movie, are you not saying that America is shallow? Like, are you not, like, you know what I mean? Like, the more you dissect this film, the more it seems like Roland Emmerich was just playing one big joke on everybody.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Very weird.
It messed with me, man. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd like to get our listeners' thoughts on that because I really feel like there's some weird stuff going on here. Like, if you look at the way the Chernobyl site's handled, where this American guy comes in like zippity-doo-dah, you know, singing his, just playfully digging up worms in Chernobyl, not really acknowledging how like messed up the situation is that he's in, you know, just like, oh, I'm studying the worm growth and they're 17% bigger. And we're all watching this like, yeah, that's Chernobyl. You should probably be a little bit more somber about what you're doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole thing seems like a criticism about America and American filmmaking.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So,
Aaron, just besides this weird conspiracy theory I want to start about Roland Emmerich doing this on purpose, do you have any other thoughts about Godzilla?
No, like I said, for me, it was just a nostalgic movie.
Oh yeah.
Just reminded me so much of growing up. Reminded me of being like a kid, not having a care in the world, and just loving watching a monster destroy things. Just like a simpler time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely a simpler time. That's such a key phrase for this, for sure. Because with filmmaking, it was so much more straightforward, and you know. I was trying really hard not to use the word fun when talking about this film because I feel like that's such a subjective phrase, you know, when like describing or even defending a movie. But I remember when I was a kid, man, sitting down in that theater, I think I had like a Godzilla popcorn bucket, you know. I was so ready to see this thing, and I loved every minute of it as a kid.
Yeah.
So I can see why it flopped, but I feel like Godzilla 1998 has a little special place in my heart still.
Yeah, me too.
Aaron, what would you say to recommend this film to people?
Okay, so I'm going to recommend this film to all the nice guys out there. Because, I also have a title for this movie.
Yeah.
Nice guys don't finish last, or doesn't finish last. Just because... Yeah, it was kind of like a theme throughout this movie, which was like, nice guys finish last. So Audrey feels like she has to be a little bit of a bad guy and like, you know, lie and kind of scrape her way to the top. But throughout this whole entire movie, Matthew Broderick is just a nice guy. Like, he obviously gets dumped by her, but 8 years still holds on to feelings and just continuing being a nice guy waiting for his time to come. And it eventually does come, and he capitalizes on it. and so, like, you see him maintain the nice guy throughout the entire movie, right?
Right.
But then you see the opposite of that in Audrey, where she's trying to, but, like, not maintaining nice guy, but she has to, you know, do some things to get herself ahead. And, so you like see the contrast between the two types of people out there. But what ends up winning in the end is the nice guy. And so, yeah, if you're a nice guy, just keep holding on, and this movie is for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's very nice. You know what would have been a wacky sequel to this film is Nick and Audrey, they have a baby, but because of Nick's prolonged exposure to radiation, the baby grows up to be like a giant baby that faces the new Godzilla.
But it could transform into a worm.
It's just a giant worm.
Oh, a little dirt eater.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like this, you know, it's very easy to criticize this movie, but at the end of the day, there's some incredible craftsmanship in it, some wild sound design, some really neat backstory, and chances were taken. And whether or not you like it, we need filmmakers that are willing to try a new approach to source material, especially well-established source material, because why do you want just the same thing over and over again, you know? I keep going back to that. Like, there was like 22 films. Roland Emmerich said, I want to try something else or else I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And we need more directors willing to just give the middle finger to like other production companies and just kind of make what they want.
I agree. And there is there's a hypocritical nature to the whole thing because Toho signed off on a lot of this stuff, and Japanese audiences really did slam this movie when it came out. But they also slammed the first one when it came out too, the very first one. So it's like, there is a whole twisty tale behind this film, and I encourage you to dig deeper on it because there's so much more than we have time for. But you gotta check it out.
Yeah.
So Aaron, out of 10, what would you give this movie?
I give this movie six nice guys out of 10 nice guys.
I give this movie, I'll give it 6 radiated iguana eggs out of a possible 10 radiated iguana eggs.
Yes.
I definitely don't see 16%.
No.
Well, that's... Yeah, I mean, more or less. I'm sure there's more we could have said on it, but yeah, that's 1998's Godzilla, or Zilla for you Puritans.
Yeah, and I would encourage any of our listeners, if you haven't seen the more current Godzillas, definitely give them a watch. And also, if you guys have any movie recommendations for like monster movies, throw them our way.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, also, if you're watching this movie, at the 51-minute mark, you tell me if that's supposed to be the wet bandits from Home Alone that show up. Because I'm really curious if that's what that's supposed to be. Yeah, let us know what you think of this movie, and if you think that this whole Roland Emmerich doing this on purpose thing holds any water. We want to know what you thought of the show. You can reach out to us on all our social media stuff, Reddit, Instagram, email, Twitter, however you want. It's all in the show notes. And yeah, I think that's all we got. So, until next time, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Just a special hello to all of our listeners around the world, in the US, Australia. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cue P. Diddy Godzilla song.
Yeah.